Oh, hi there. You must be interested in the Inca Empire. Well, you've come to the right place, because I've got a travel guide. Okay, so let's make sure that you know where the Inca Empire is located. The Inca Empire covers part of modern-day Peru, Chile, Bolivia, and Argentina. Depending on what era you're thinking of going into, make sure to remember who the leaders were during that time. Let's start off with some lesser-known emperors, Huáscar and Atahualpa. These two brothers fought a lot for the throne from 1525 to 1532. Huáscar received more power, and because of this, his brother was jealous. So Atahualpa rebelled against his brother and drove him out of power. Then the Spanish had come to the empire, and Atahualpa was worried that they would bring Huáscar back to the power. So he ordered his own brother's assassination. This may not be a time period you want to visit, but who am I to judge? The last emperor on this list is Pachacuti. His name means cataclysm or earthquake. He overthrew his father in 1438 and died in 1473. During his time as emperor, he greatly expanded the empire, designed and rebuilt the capital, Cusco, organized the law and religion, and what he is most famous for is building Machu Picchu. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about the military force. Sorry about that one. So yeah, their military force consisted of 200,000 soldiers that would fight battles and collect materials for the empire. These men were trained bi-monthly, so make sure not to disturb them while they are doing that. The commanders usually are from royalty because of their loyalty to the empire and emperor. They are tasked with making the most efficient trips for materials and how many men to send out into battle. The Inca were really keen on being an efficient empire and having an efficient military. Here's a list of their weapons and an explanation of what they do. Boladoras, aka bolas, are two weights attached on the ends of a rope. These were mainly used for hunting animals, but were very effective in binding the enemy's limbs, restricting their movement. Slingshots were used to fire heavy stones and lead balls at the enemy. Bows and arrows, spears and javelins to hurl at the enemy. And lastly is the mace. The main Inca mace was called the macana, having a star-shaped head made of stone, bone, or copper. Basically any material that does damage to somebody. Please make sure that on your trip you don't somehow get dragged into a battle or a situation where you'll be injured by a weapon. I need to state this for legal reasons, because we're not going to be responsible for what happens to you out there. Onto the class structure. There were only 3 classes in the beginning of the empire: the emperor, nobles, and the commoners. The emperor was the one who ruled the country and was believed to be a descendant of the sun god, Inti, as most ancient civilizations believed the rulers were descendants from their most powerful god. The emperor owned everything and ruled with absolute authority. He also had many wives and children, but the weirdest thing is that his main wife was his sister. The nobles were the ones who helped administer the empire. They had lots of land, clothing, and llamas. They also upheld the law, and get this, they didn't even have to pay their taxes. Lastly, there are the commoners. These people were at the bottom of the class structure, but thankfully the Incas didn't believe in slavery. But the commoners did farm a lot, and they did give most of it as tax to the empire, so they were slaves in a way. Now we'll briefly go over the Incan religion. The Inca were polytheistic, which means they worshipped more than one god. They also believed in animism, which means that they believed the natural world had a spiritual connection, and their gods were based on aspects of the natural world. For example, their most powerful gods were Inti the sun god and Mama Quila, who is the goddess of the moon, protector of women and fertility. The Inca had many religious festivals, so those will be around when you go to visit. The Inca were pretty good technology-wise. They found a way to freeze-dry their produce, which was helpful in preserving the food. This was done by leaving potatoes in the freezing cold with a cloth. Then they would step on said cloth to draw out all the moisture from the potato. Rinse and repeat this process, and then you would freeze dried potatoes. They also made rope bridges to get across valleys and rivers in the mountains. One partner would stand on one side and fire an arrow of rope to the other person across. Most of the time, the person receiving the rope would die to secure the bridge, but the Inca saw it as an honorable death since they died doing a good cause for the empire. If you're going to go to the Incan Empire, go during the time of Pachacuti. You'll get to see the popular site Machu Picchu being built. Machu Picchu was an ancient citadel for the Incan people. Also, another thing I would like to mention is to please not take any of the people's idols or artifacts. If you take any of these clay pots, gold images, and jewelry, it'll mess with the space-time continuum or something like that. So please do not do that. We do not need another incident to deal with again. The last thing I want to talk to you about is the gender roles in the Incan Empire. Men and women were seen as equals. Both genders had their own roles and tasks to fulfill. Men did the hard work and the women did the housekeeping and sewing, but at the end of the day, they saw each other as an important part of the family and society. So there you go. Are you now curious about visiting the Inca Empire? I hope all of the information I just gave you will help you on your trip or persuade you to go. Alright, you have a good day now. I hope to see you again.